Yeah, we drove in that street. The other
Yeah.
we saw this house and that was how I saw it. Closing house. For 40 months, met the house. Even what is even what's the national? It was. I think they are. That's probably the first.
Yeah, like nice to meet you, Stevie. Thanks to me.
Yeah, it's already bad.
Okay, so. I let her leave. You know what it looks like? It's close. Yeah. Always thought it was a good looking car. Yeah, so the same thing like always paid for something like to. Got the truck and I like never do anything to it. That's what I like. Last story. How are you? This one seems to be all the way to oh, that's correctly. Your brain. That's what
I'm sorry. I would go about to start the meeting if y'all could just take a seat. Exactly what we're doing.
Hello, Artie. Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending our July Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I am officially calling the meeting to order now. Let's have a roll call. Looks like we have everyone here except Ryan Schwartz. All right. As for approval to the minutes from our May zoning board meeting, since we did not have a June meeting, did the board have a chance to review the minutes? Any edits? Any motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, our May 7th zoning board minutes have been approved. Thank you. Are there any organizational and procedural items for tonight? Nope. Okay. Is there, well, actually, let me take on my procedural item. I will read you the chairman's preamble for the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with the responsibility of granting variances to ordinance requirements after determining whether there exists an undue hardship upon an applicant. In determining whether or not to grant a variance, the board shall apply the criteria specified in the City Code of Ordinances to the facts of each case. The Zoning Board of Appeals does not create zoning, nor can it change zoning. Matters brought before the Zoning Board of Appeals are to be concerned only with variances from requirements of the zoning ordinance, sign ordinance, and development and environmental ordinance. The board has no authority to grant variances for use, density, or height. Further, the board hears cases requesting an appeal to a staff interpretation or decision on these same ordinances. Final decisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals may be appealed by petitioning the Superior Court of DeKalb County within 30 days after the decision is rendered. And with that, I will turn it over to staff for any unfinished business.
Okay, good evening, board. So we have one piece of unfinished business. It's ZBA 26-07, 4661 Buckline Circle. You may recall that this originally came before you all in April and it was deferred to the May meeting. They had 3 requests initially. 1 was approved, and then the applicant withdrew the remaining 2 requests at the end of June. So the case is withdrawn. There's no public hearing tonight. Just wanted to give you all that update since it had been advertised. So no action item required on your end.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then we can move on to new business.
All right. So the first 2 cases, ZBA 26-11 and ZBA 26-12, are separate lots, but it's the same project. So I'm going to present them together and then we'll do separate motions, and then I'll be available for questions about them together individually. So the first one is for 1414 Noreen Circle, and they're requesting a special exception to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range. The second one is ZBA 26-12, 1412 Noreen Circle, and they're requesting the same special exception. So you may remember that in 2025, 1416 Noreen Circle received a special exception to allow relief from contextual lot characteristic requirements, and the lot was subsequently subdivided into the two properties that you see before you. And so you can see on the site plan here, the one to the left is 1412 Noreen Circle, the one to the right is 1414 Noreen Circle. And so the applicant, it's the same applicant for both. They're building one new home on each lot. The residential infill regulations dictate that the street setback facade of the new house must be located at approximately 70 feet. That's the range of street setbacks observed by the two neighboring properties. And you can see that in the dotted red line on the site plans to the right. The street setback for each new house will be 50 feet, prompting a contextual street setback special exception request for each lot. These are the proposed elevations for each lot. ZBA 26-12, 1412 Noreen Circle is to the left, and ZBA 26-11, 1414 Noreen Circle is to the right. And this is how it would be if you look at the lots from the street view. So the one on the left is 1412 and the one on the right is 1414. The applicant is additionally proposing landscaping plans, and so I've laid them out here in the same configuration. Again, the lot to the left is the one that you would see when you're looking at the two lots from the street view. So the contextual street setback regulations were created to ensure that new properties are not out of character with their surrounding neighborhood. However, the regulations were not written to consider the nuance of the particular situation of every property. And so the contextual street setback standards are intended to be calculated by 4 adjacent properties, 2 to the left, 2 to the right. However, due to the orientation of the house to the right, for both of these, the contextual street setbacks are calculated by only 2 properties, which penalize them by creating a more specific range. Both adjacent houses that provide the contextual street setback standards are located significantly further back than the R100 minimum street setback requirements at approximately 70 feet each. They're much larger than the 35-foot street setback. Within this subdivision, typical street setbacks range from 38 feet to approximately 70 feet. And so with a street setback of 50 feet, the new home will not appear out of scale for the subdivision, and the proposed encroachment does not go beyond the minimum necessary to afford relief. Additionally, DeKalb County does not provide sewer service to either of these two lots, and so the applicant needs to install an on-site septic system. In order to meet DeKalb County requirements, there has to be space on the property to install both a primary absorption field and a required replacement field. And so there will be one in the rear yard and one in the front yard for each lot, significantly constraining the buildable area for the new home. Moving the house further back would create practical difficulty by either making rear yard amenities infeasible or reducing the area available for the septic field beyond the minimum required. The applicant had conversations with the neighbor to the rear who supports moving the house forward to increase the distance to the house and pool area. And that will also allow the applicant to provide trees to create a visual buffer as shown in the landscape plans. So overall, and this is the approximate setback range for the neighborhood. I'm happy to refer to it at any point if we have questions about it. And so the motions for each case need to be made separately, but in each case, staff is recommending approval subject to 3 conditions. Our standard site plan condition, that construction must commence within 2 years of the granting of the variance, and additionally conditioning them to the submitted landscape plan. And so again, you'll need to make 2 separate motions when we get there, but staff is recommending approval on both with the exact same conditions for both. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions right now? Okay, I invite the applicant to come forward and present the case. And if you could please state your name and address.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Liel Manoa. I am the applicant, and I will be the applicant on behalf of both homes.
Okay, you're speaking for both?
Yes, I'll speak for both. Mr. Livnat is currently out of the country, so I'm gonna speak for both homes. Most important item for me to say on this is these are gonna be our personal residences. We're not doing this to do anything out of the ordinary here. We've spoken to the neighbor in the back, Mr. Willis, who is in support per my emails and communications with him. We've spoken to the neighbor to the left of us. Like Ms. Allegra said, there is really no neighbor to the right. It's a neighbor facing Chamblee Dunwoody. So that has like a side setback of 15, 20 feet. So it's irrelevant to this case. We spoke to neighbors across from us, which have no issue and were in support as well. And as stated, I mean, we have a hardship because of DeKalb Health Department trying to do a septic system rather than sewer. We have to have enough space in the front and in the back, more so for expert leach fields and whatnot, to absorb all that sewer capabilities. On top of that, I think we're in line. There's nothing that is precedented creating here. I mean, most new constructions in the neighborhood are well below the 50-foot setback. We're not asking to be more than that. I think that's just what we can get. That's the minimum requirement that we can live with in order to build what we want to build and what we need to build per requirements. As far as the landscape, we have not only landscape, but we also actually added privacy fences. Again, per our conversation with the neighboring in the back, to the right and to the left. So that's something that we took on ourselves as well. And I'm happy to advise on anything else as needed.
Okay, thank you. You may have stated this and I missed it, but for the record, can you state your address, please?
Yes, I apologize. I did not say this. I'm a Dunwoody resident. I live in 4561 Old Perimeter Way, pretty much down the street. I grew up in Ashford Chase, Oxford Chase, and Dunwoody Club Drive all around. So I've been a Dunwoody resident for quite a while.
Okay, thank you. Before we move into public comment, which we will do for each separate case, are there any board questions for the applicant? Okay, I did have a quick question.
Please.
Why does DeKalb County require septic for these two lots, but not for anything else in the neighborhood?
So unfortunately, there's no.
Or the whole neighborhood?
I'm not sure it's the whole neighborhood. I think there are some lots that actually have sewer connection. These two specific lots don't have sewer connection, so we have to do septic systems for them.
Okay. All right.
Just a quick one. You representing as a friend, as counsel, or is just the nature of your representation of the applicant?
I mean, it's going to be my personal residence.
Oh, sorry. I missed that part. Okay.
And the other property
It's
is?
going to be his personal residence. We work together, but we're also great friends for the past 20 something years. So I'm just representing him as well, as he couldn't attend today, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so if there are no other board comments, then I will open it up for public comment.
Stay here.
You can have a seat unless there are.
Then, Chair, I would say let's do these separately. Let's do the public comment separate for the agenda item 2611. Then let us
Sure.
make a motion for that agenda item, and then we'll do the separate public comment for agenda item 26-12, and then a motion for that agenda item.
So I need a motion for public comment or just?
No, just like let's do them sequentially, kind of in this order.
Yeah.
Like a separate,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to open this up for public comment for ZBA 26-11, 1414 Noreen Circle. And let's start this way. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the applicant? No public comment for 1414 Noreen for in favor.
Can speak in favor of that.
Thank you. Just to mention that the ones that were in favor spoke to the city directly to mention that they're in favor of this.
Thank you. Okay, I do have a public comment card for someone who is speaking against the application. James Kelly. Yes, please come forward and if you can state your name and your address. And we have, there was no one speaking in favor, but we have 10 minutes allocated for those speaking in favor and those speaking against, 10 minutes each. Excuse me, for the entire for and against, not per person.
Hello. My name is James Kelly, and I own the home at 1310 Noreen Circle, which is, Noreen Circle is a horseshoe-shaped street, so I'm on the other side of it. I'm a home builder and a renovator. Little bit of background. Oh, to answer your question about Noreen Circle, there's no sewer ties in general, but the houses on the surrounding part of the U can tie into the sewer line there. So the homes on the back end of Noreen are on sewer, but the rest of us have to have drain fields. A little bit of background to begin the discussion. When we purchased our home in 2005, there were only a few infills on Noreen Circle. Today, the total is 18, with 4 more to come based on the agenda tonight. The setbacks are all different around our horseshoe-shaped street. My house, renovated on its original footprint, is one of the closer ones, maybe 40, 45 feet, not sure. But when they did the infills to the left of me, the county and city required that they contextually line up with mine. So all 3 of us are very close. On the other hand, across the street, home number 1311 is likewise on its original foundation. And the city required the 2 infills to the right of that to be contextually lined up with them. And whereas ours are very close, those setbacks are 120 to 130 feet. So they're all front yard, very little backyard, but the builder agreed and all 3 line up. And that's basically the way it is around the entirety of Noreen Circle. Setbacks are different, but all the houses contextually line up. And that's very important because it makes the neighborhood more aesthetically pleasing. Everything blends together. There's old houses, unrenovated, renovations, new homes, but yet if you go there around the cul-de-sac, the middle, everything to this point lines up quite nicely. Which brings us to the 2 houses under discussion. The 2 infills across the street from the applicant line up contextually with an original home there. So all 3 of those homes, just like the other part of Noreen Circle, all line up. The 2 homes to the left of the applicant, they likewise line up with each other. So that brings us to the point here. If all the houses line up contextually and we're just about built out from Pine Valley in 1955 to Noreen Circle of 2026, these are going to be 2 of the last houses to be built. And coming in from Chambly, Dunwoody in that direction, they'll be the first 2 you see on the right. If you allow them to be 50 feet, for example, now I don't know exactly what the right of way is from the curb, but the first house directly to the left of these applicants to their garage is 99 feet, which in the garage is even with the front of the house. And the house to the left of that lines up. Now, if you take off 15 feet for a right of way, I'm not sure whether it's 15, 20, whatnot, that leaves you with 74 feet. 50, while I'm agreeing that 50 feet is acceptable on other parts of the neighborhood, allowing 2 large homes to come 50 feet, whereas everything else across the street and next to it are 70 to 80 feet back, it just presents a visual problem. And that's why I'm speaking tonight. Now, the homes are beautiful and I have nothing against the applicant, and I'm happy he's moving the neighborhood. A rising tide raises all boats. These 2 beautiful homes are going to make my home more valuable. And I think there can be a compromise made here, because no matter how beautiful they are, these will be the only 2 homes that do not contextually line up in the neighborhood. And so it's going to be awkward that they jut out like that when everything else around the entire circle lines up with each other. So, and finally, the case for hardship I'm on septic and I realize that. And my next door neighbor has septic and a pool. And I realize being a builder that it raises a lot of logistical problems. But just because you want to build a house on a particular lot and it's too big does not make it a hardship. For example, the final two items on your agenda tonight are also on Noreen Circle. And these lots, if there's a definition of hardship, it's these two lots. They drop precipitously from the curb. They're very difficult to build on. And if a builder wanted to say, I need a little hardship help in this respect, I would agree 100%. But this, I think some kind of compromise can be made, whether it's pushing the house a little bit closer, maybe give them 10% closer than the contextual setback. But my concern here is for the neighborhood and the aesthetic of the entire circle, that these would be to date the only two houses that do not line up with anything else. So I'm here tonight to ask for maybe to kick it back and ask staff to come up with some kind of compromise to push them back just a bit. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to the application for 1414 Noreen Circle? Okay, then I will close public comment now. And I will open it up for board discussion, comment, additional questions. Yeah.
Could I get the applicant to come back to the podium, please? So quick question, regarding the landscape plan. I was trying, I think I saw one for the back. Do you have a landscape plan for the front yard as well? Or Allegra, could you point me to that? If,
No, we have not yet done a landscape plan for the front. It is something that we're working on currently.
okay,
Our most, I guess, our important part to date was to address conversations we've had with neighbors in the back and just screen it with a nice privacy fence and of course, canopy trees and any landscaping that would make it, a nice buffer.
perfect. When you plan on doing construction, do you plan on pretty much clear cutting the property or are you going to try to preserve some trees in the front yard?
That's going to be dependent on, what professionals say, to be honest. If it's up to me, I would try to preserve as much as I can. But again, because of these leach fields, I don't know how much I would be able to preserve. They need to basically go all across the property.
Okay,
I think that would be affecting enough trees and root zones and whatnot.
okay. And then can you remind me, I was trying to find it, but you probably know this a lot more easily than I do. What's the square footage for the first home we're talking about?
Per the floor plan, or
Just the square footage of the home.
the total square footage is about 4,200 square feet.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
nothing too crazy.
All right, that's awesome. That's all I have for me.
We're doing board discussion too? Okay. So you remember this was a subdivided property, right? And then if you actually look at the two neighboring properties behind it, it's pretty much a mirror footprint. So I think that's all fine and well. I think, to the gentleman who's in opposition, with, not in opposition of actually building or anything per se, but I know Noreen fairly well. I have a friend that lives there. It's a beautiful neighborhood. I walked the area when the tornado came through a couple years ago. I think one home was completely demolished, but it's a very challenging neighborhood. And the septic thing is one thing I remember because my friend had always showed me that. And he's like, yeah, it's buried right here and so on and so forth. But I don't know. I don't know what else you do. I guess to the point of the contextual setback of a 50 versus a 62 versus a 56. The truth of the matter is that inner horseshoe, those homes that are in the inner there have huge front lots, small backyards, and then the outers are kind of the inverse. So at the end of the day, you're trying to maximize on your buildable area while also preserving the lot. I just think it's important to note that contextual is kind of, yeah, it's a reference point, but it's not a cut and dry thing. Building aside, again, it's a challenging neighborhood, and what's very interesting of it too is someone else had referenced this, those 4 homes, I think it's 4 homes that front Chambly Dunwoody. I don't know if those are considered part of the neighborhood officially, but that adds a different dynamic too, because there is actually a home on the corner there that was sold recently that, in my opinion, was probably a tear down candidate as well. So who knows what we'll have without it. So a long-winded way of me saying that, yeah, it's Noreen has changed in the past. It had some new builds from the 90s and early 2000s. Then it kind of stayed stagnant for a while. Now there's some more infill coming again. I think this is just kind of like tying things out as with the times. So
Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, Noreen's been coming to me since the city has been, that's 2008. There's something in Noreen, but it's not the average home. You're not talking 2,000 square foot or 3,000. I mean, everybody's 3,000 or 4,000. If they didn't get there, they're going to get there. So as much as I want to say, you know what, because it's going to be a visual problem, it's going to be awkward, it's going to be bigger, but that's just what they've done in Dunwoody since I've lived here for like 20 years. And it's just all the small houses are gone. And there is everybody else is getting the 50. So if you're a bigger house, then that means that they should probably get what everybody is getting. Too bad their house is probably bigger than some others, but they are asking for what most people are getting there. And the other thing is there is a challenge that's articulated. And it's there, and even the person in opposition said it. I mean, it's nice to have a nice uniform block, but that's not Noreen Circle, whether I grant it or not grant it today. So I don't think I would. I don't think I could really oppose it. I mean, I feel bad about it, but for me, I think the applicant put on a pretty good reason why we should grant the variance.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that as I pulled up just a satellite. And so I think part of the reason why we're also addressing this setback, which also let's recognize that 35 is the R100 setback.
Correct.
This is 50. So we're already beyond what the minimum setback would be. But we're also trying to address having the property be usable. And I appreciate someone coming in going like, gosh, I'd like to put in a pool one day. And these are the parameters that I have to work with. And if we look on the overhead, the satellite visual, a significant, if not majority number of the homes in that neighborhood have a pool. And so we're not going to have someone come back to us and ask us for more variances in order to go into the setback or to do other things. They're coming, and this looks like a one and done. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the forward thinking. And I do believe that septic system adds a challenge that they are trying to address, and they're also being respectful by not coming all the way up to the 35, which is something that we've seen happen to us.
And there are homes 4 over that are less than, I don't know, 1380, I can't quite see, is not quite 50 feet. And then you've got 38 feet, and then you've got 40 feet, and then 36 feet.
it's a broad range.
It goes from
It's a range.
36 to like 136.
So these lots, because they are the first two, as Mr. Kelly did acknowledge, the first two that you might see when you drive in from that turn, the disadvantage in justifying a contextual or in setting a contextual setback is that you don't have 4 homes like we might ordinarily have. We only have 2 homes, and those 2 homes happen to be 72, 75 feet. So is there a disadvantage here in establishing a valid contextual street setback because we're only looking at 2 properties and not 4?
And that's Erica put it very well, in my opinion. I think one, to me, that's very clear is a septic is a provable hardship. I mean, that's not a normal thing for a vast majority of lots. Provides a technical challenge. And 2 is that forward thinking, whether or not the current applicant puts in a pool or whether or not the applicant stays in the home for 20 years or whatever, whoever comes in, whoever is going to have ownership of the property and what have you, you got more options and you're doing it kind of like a one and done is a good way to put it. So yeah,
I mean, unless you guys have more, I'm ready to move for one of them.
Okay, so
611, you guys could do the rest.
We are, yes, entertaining a motion then for ZBA 2611.
Okay, so I move to approve the request for an exception from chapter 27, section 147 to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range subject to the following conditions. One, construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by the applicant and submitted. That's 6/11/2026. And you'll see Appendix A for that. Secondly, the applicant shall install landscaping in substantial compliance with the submitted landscape plan prepared by Brunson and Company Landscape Architects and dated 6/19/2026, and that's Appendix B. And then thirdly, if construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void, and that's on ZBA 26/11/1414 Lorraine Circle.
Okay, thank you. I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. All those in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you, board. So congratulations for 1414 Noreen Circle, ZBA 2611. Now we will move into public comment for ZBA 2612 with the address of 1412 Noreen Circle. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in favor of this request? No? Is there any additional, okay, so no one else in favor. Is there any additional, anyone else to speak additionally in opposition to this request? Okay, so we will close public comment for ZBA 2612, and I will again open it up for board comment and discussion. If there's anything else that, excuse me, if there's anything else that anyone would like to add for this second neighboring property.
I just want to reiterate, just for the record, that we're dealing with the same situation, the same hardships, the same neighborhood, and for me, all my comments apply equitably between both properties.
Same here.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the request for the exception from chapter 27, section 147 to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range subject to the following conditions, and this is for ZBA 2612. Number one, construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by the applicant and submitted 6/11/2026, which is on Appendix A. Number two, the applicant shall install landscaping in substantial compliance with the submitted landscape plan prepared by Brunson and Company Landscape Architects and dated 6/19/2026. That's on Appendix B. And number three, if construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
Okay, thank you. I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Congratulations and thank you. And with that, I believe we are ready to move on to our next case, ZBA 2613.
Yep. So this one is 4600 Briarwood Place, and they have two requests: a special exception to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, and a variance to allow a driveway to encroach into the 75-foot stream buffer. So the subject lot is zoned R85, and it abuts R85 to the east, south, and west, and abuts R50 to the north. It's 0.33 acres and is undeveloped and heavily wooded. It's never been developed. A stream crosses the property at the southwest corner, and the western half of the property has a 25-foot state buffer and a 75-foot stream buffer. You can see that shown in blue or shaded in blue on the site plan to the right. The applicant proposes to build a new home, and so the residential infill regulations dictate that the street setback facade of the new house must be located between the range of street setbacks observed by the two neighboring properties on both sides of the lot. And so in this case, that's 7.3 feet to 20.5 feet. The applicant proposes a 35-foot street setback, prompting a contextual street setback special exception. In order to access the property in the new home, the applicant also proposes to construct a driveway which will encroach into the 75-foot stream buffer, and that prompts a stream buffer variance request. The proposed elevations for the house are shown to the left. So the subject property is zoned R85, which has 35-foot street setbacks. However, the 4 properties used to calculate the contextual street setback range are zoned R50, which has 5-foot street setbacks. So the contextual street setback range, which again ranges from approximately 7.3 feet to 20.5 feet, is based on properties where the houses are much closer to the street than the R85 minimum street setback requirements. If the subject property were to comply with the contextual street setback regulations, the new home would need to be constructed in the 75-foot stream buffer, which would cause significantly more stream buffer encroachment than the applicant's current plan. Staff strongly supports keeping the house out of the 75-foot stream buffer, which necessitates building it further back than the contextual street setback range because of the somewhat unique shape of the property. With a street setback of 35 feet, the proposed encroachment does not go beyond the minimum necessary to afford relief, as it will comply with the typical R85 street setback regulations. And without accounting for the mismatch between those setbacks, the strict application of the regulations could prevent new construction, which staff considers a practical difficulty. For the stream buffer variance, so the applicant proposes to encroach into the 75-foot stream buffer in order to construct a driveway. The entire western half of the subject property is located within the 75-foot stream buffer, severely limiting opportunities for developing the property without buffer encroachment. There is simply no way to access the property without encroaching into the 75-foot stream buffer, and no opportunity for any development under any design configuration unless a variance is granted. The variance request appears to be the minimum necessary to afford relief. The applicant has designed the site plan to minimize buffer encroachment by locating the house entirely outside of the 75-foot stream buffer and pushing the driveway as far away from the stream as possible. Other properties along Briarwood Place are also subject to the 75-foot stream buffer, but none are as burdened as the subject property in terms of entirely preventing access to the property. While the applicant is proposing to remove trees in the 75-foot stream buffer as part of the construction process, the proposed limits of disturbance minimize this impact, and the area closest to the stream will remain heavily wooded, mitigating potential negative impacts on natural resources and the environment. Staff is therefore recommending approval on both of these requests with 4 conditions. The submitted site plan, the typical substantial compliance one, saying that the limits of disturbance shall be no closer to the stream than what is shown on the submitted site plan, as we really want the applicant to adhere to those limits of disturbance, recognizing that there's going to be work done in the stream buffer. Because the applicant will be removing several trees, we're asking that they plant 2 canopy trees in the front yard between the driveway and the stream. The applicant knows about this condition and has agreed to it. And then the last one is our standard construction must commence within 2 years of the granting of this variance. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions right now? I have a quick question. Do you happen to know how many trees need to be removed? I mean, I see the requirement to plant the 2 canopy trees at the front, but from the property in general, not just the driveway area in the stream buffer.
Yeah, I think there's about approximately 7 that are going to be removed within the stream buffer. And then, and the arborist and I went out to take a look at those. I'm not sure how many others the applicant is planning to remove. He may be able to answer that question, but those are the ones within the stream buffer that will be removed.
Okay, thanks.
Just a quick question. The applicant had referenced the 25-foot stream buffer a lot in their written application. Can you please, for the record, state what the city of Dunwoody observes as the designated and adhered to state buffer?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is it 75 feet or 25 feet that the city of Dunwoody observes as the state stream buffer?
The city of Dunwoody observes a 75-foot stream buffer, and within that is the state's observed 25-foot state buffer. So there's 2 pieces, but the city of Dunwoody does observe a 75-foot stream buffer.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward and present your case? Also state your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is William Brackbill. I live at 10069 Deer Ridge Drive, Ooltewah, Tennessee. And presentation.
Yeah.
Are you able to pull up that
Yeah, this is what
right. Okay. So what Allegra just pulled up is the city map. And then with that overlaid on that is the 25-foot buffer in yellow, which I believe is the state, and then I believe the orange is the additional 50 feet, which comprises the total for 75. So when this subdivision was developed in 1989 or thereabouts, I don't know the exact date, but it was developed in the late 80s. A lot of this stream was piped, solid piped and filled in, and you can see the houses where a lot of the houses are actually that are down at the lower end. They're in the 75-foot buffer already. And some of them have drive behind garages. They've got cleared backyards. So what I'm asking to do is even less than what's the development pattern of the neighborhood was when it was developed, is just to skirt the edge of the easement with a driveway of the buffer with a driveway to get back to where the house would go that's not in the buffer. Some of the concerns in the letters that were sent in and probably will be raised is that that I'm going to increase drain. I guess there's some pre-existing drainage issues with the houses over here. My house is at the lowest elevation of the neighborhood. All the water is coming down the stream to me. So any drainage from this property or driveway is going to enter the stream significantly downstream from any of these residents. Whatever kind of drainage issues or flooding that they're experiencing. By the way, this is not in this stream is not a 100-year flood zone. It's a minor stream by definition. So the end of the street itself is in the 75-foot buffer. A lot of the first house across the street was in the buffer, and I believe that person sent a letter, talked about a lot of her drainage problems. Whether I build or not, she's going to have a lot of drainage problems, and whatever I do is a very small impact. She's taking water from all the way uphill. I'm putting water downhill from her, and water doesn't flow uphill. As far as the contextual setback, again, this neighborhood was developed when it was under DeKalb County. It's not even part of this neighborhood, but and I've tried to research to find out how that came into existence, but the best I can tell, it was cut out of a property on Laurelwood Drive. And I believe there was some kind of deal made with the developer to extend that sewer and tie the sewer into Laurelwood Drive. And they created a lot out of that deal that accessed out on Briarwood. So somebody in the past, one of the adjoining neighbors bought the lot and never developed it. And then I believe it got sold, and now it's for 30 years, 35 years, everybody that's lived there thought that the lot was unbuildable because it was never built on. But at the time it was platted, we wouldn't be having this discussion because there was only a 25-foot state buffer when it was platted. The 75-foot came in after, or none of these houses would have been built on that side of the street. And then there was one question that was raised in the letters about a 1-story construction house. And it's going to be a 2-story construction house. So, and I had reached out to the website for the association when I first bought the lot, telling them I'd bought the lot and I would like to meet with them. And I never heard anything back because I wanted to, and I'm still willing to, I benefit by making my houses look just like their houses architecturally. It's kind of a gingerbread Victorian, very nice neighborhood. And my intent would be to be very consistent with that. It would fit right in. Except I don't think anybody's gonna be able to see it because you come down the cul-de-sac and you make a hard left. The only person that's gonna see the house is really the person that lives there. And it sits much further to the right. There's a lot more space between it and the house to the left than all the other houses are very close together. One comment talked about concern for construction traffic. If this was a house with a 5-foot or 15-foot setback, which is typical in there, all the work would have to be done from the street, all the parking. Fortunately, I have a long driveway that's going to come in and curve up to the house. It'll be gravel all the way. There'll be room to get the pump truck in there, the concrete trucks. The workers will be able to park back there. It's going to be really the best situation for, it takes 6 to 9 months to build a house. And I share the concern that there could be some blockage of the road while they're unloading material or something, but generally that's just a few minutes. We've got the noise ordinances, I think it's 7 to 7 or 8 to 8, about when work can be done. I'm sure I've left something out, but that's the sum of it.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions now for the applicant? Okay, I have a couple. When did you purchase the lot?
I'm under contract to purchase it. I generally won't close on a property that requires variances until the variances are in place. So the contract is contingent on that. But at representing the owner, there are vested right case law in the state of Georgia with regard to stream buffers and stuff like context. When the regulations take a pre-existing, like Allegra said, this lot's unbuildable. So this lot, someone's been paying taxes on this lot since it was created in the 80s. And all of a sudden, regulations come in 2013 and later that say it's not, even in DeKalb County, before the city, there wasn't but just a 25-foot stream buffer.
Okay, thank you. Another question, you mentioned gravel driveway. Are you going to pay
Yeah, it'll be
during construction?
Just during construction. That I would love to put a concrete driveway, but it would just get messed up. So.
Okay, and a third question, and then I'm done. Have you done any kind of independent evaluation or had an engineer determine if there would be any stormwater impact by a driveway being put at that end point of the cul-de-sac, or is there a drainage plan? I mean, we talked earlier about the 2 canopy trees, but what else?
Well, there's 50 foot between the driveway and the stream that would filter runoff.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm speaking specifically about that cul-de-sac point where the driveway meets it. I mean, we've seen, and I'm suspecting we're going to get some comments about this, but the flooding that occurs in that area. And I'm just wondering what the impact of the concrete right there would cause. Have you had any engineers?
The grading plan, I mean, the driveway it's going downhill. Water's not going to come from the driveway back into the street.
Understood.
Yeah.
What's that? Right. So what I know that water's not going to flow up.
Right. Well, I'm just trying to make, because a lot of people aren't, you may have driven out there and looked at it, but
I did.
Right now, the end of the street is kind of a mess. Whoever owned this property before, there was a wooden fence there that's kind of laid over like this. I think what kind of happened is this a lot of debris, and people have been dumping yard trash there, and it's kind of created a dam there. And if there's been water backing up at the end of the cul-de-sac, it's the fence, because that's much lower than the end of the cul-de-sac. So any water that's backing up there is kind of would be, I wouldn't leave that there. I would take that and kind of clean that up a little bit. So as far as the study, anything under 5,000 square foot of impervious, which this is substantially below that, doesn't require a stormwater plan. It's like even in the heaviest 100-year flood or rain event, you're talking about an 1/8 of an inch increase in the amount of water that would rise up.
I think we've seen footage of significantly more than that, so that's why I'm concerned about.
But that's there already.
Exactly.
Right, but what I'm saying is the amount of impervious that I'm putting there has a very minimal impact, and it's downstream from anybody here. Part of the process, like this is just step one. I would finalize the architectural plans. Unlike the previous applicant who has a buildable lot with or without the variance, it's just a matter of, so he went ahead and spent a lot of money on the plans. He may have built that house before, I don't know. But I didn't want to spend $5,000 or $6,000 on architectural plans. But the next step is to go through the permitting process, and there's the city engineers review everything, and they might make other suggestions, or want like a berm with a sand filter for additional. But it's really, with or without that, it's not going to impact minimally.
Okay.
The stream.
Thank you. Okay. Any other board? Oh, Mr. Blackville. Hang on. I think we have a few other board questions for you.
Just a couple questions. Do you know what the square footage of the driveway is going to be?
It's like 11 feet wide. I don't have that here. So
do you remember, like, so if it's 11 feet wide, about how long?
It's like 800 square feet, maybe 80 feet.
Okay. And then are you planning on, for the home, putting in any sort of what will your gutter system be? So you'll put a gutter and then it will filter down to the stream. Will you be doing flow wells? What's the water capture system that you envision?
Like I said, that'll be addressed at the permitting process, whatever staff is looking for on that. Generally, with an infill lot, we're not doing flow wells, but I will pipe. I'm not gonna. The idea is to let the water come out of the gutters as close to the house as possible, so that it has more time to filter across the grass.
Here in Dunwoody, infills do flow wells. I have a home that has flow wells, so I'm in an infill home.
Really? Was it built under Dunwoody or DeKalb?
Dunwoody.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Allegra, can I ask you a couple questions, or a question? So, because we are dealing with an area with heavy water flow, and we are dealing with the stream that obviously, and we know in Dunwoody water is a continual conversation. What would you all be requiring in terms of water management for the home with the impervious spaces? Like if you were to okay.
I can take this on. So what Mr. Brackbill described is, from a code standpoint, this is code requirements. The trigger is 5,000 square feet impervious surface. If you at 5,000 square feet of impervious surface, the stormwater management ordinance starts to apply. So it really doesn't apply until you reach that threshold. So there's no code requirement to do flow wells or to do anything of that nature. It's also, it can be tricky. So to do these types of tools, because that rely on infiltration into the ground. Closer to streams because of the water table, that these things rely on soil tests, that there's infiltration potential in the grounds. But now the soil test, we can't say one way or the other that this is a suitable solution for that location. A second thing that we're looking into for a lot like this is more with site grading. That water that enters the site, which is partially here coming down Briarwood, and there's actually a concrete flume sort of like at the end of the cul-de-sac, sort of like that gets the water into. Oh yeah, we prepared this actually. Sort of at the end of Briarwood there's a concrete flume that gets the water like around the corner onto Mr. Brackbill's property, and then further down towards the stream. That may need repair. We don't know for sure to make sure that this functions properly. And then there's water coming probably into Mr. Brackbill's property from the north, like from 4607. And there his site plan shows sort of a ditch sort of on the side that allows that water that enters the site not to get into his basement, but or get into his home, but to get by the side of the house and then across the driveway towards the creek.
Is that in place now? Or
that would be as part of the site grading, overall.
would that improve the backup of water that aggregates during heavy rainfall in that cul-de-sac area?
So what it could be is, and speculating right now, it could be sort of like the fence sort of that captures some of the water. It could be that the flume is not properly maintained, and that may need fixing to allow that water to pass through. Some of this, yeah, we would look at during the permitting process.
And you would do that all during permitting?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, board questions for the applicant? No? Okay, then I am going to, thank you, Mr. Brackbill. I'm going to open up for public comment. And as a reminder, okay, thank you. As a reminder, we will allow 10 minutes for a cumulative for comments in favor of the applicant, and then 10 minutes for comments in opposition to the application. So I am going to start. Is there anyone here wanting to speak in favor? No. Okay. I've got several cards of people who are wanting to speak against. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to start my timer when the first person starts speaking, and I've got Frank O'Neill on my first card. If you could please restate your name and your address.
Yes, good evening. My name is Frank O'Neill. I live at 2559 Briars North Drive, which is just upstream from the parcel in question. I had a chance to observe this creek for a good number of years because I live adjacent to it. And I want to try and kind of dispel any notion that this is a minor creek. This is a major stormwater conveyance. So upstream, it has it takes inflows from Briars North, from Madison, and from Andover. These are major inflows. And on the downstream side, this basin that 4600 lies in is it's bounded by Laurelwood Road, right? So the inflows greatly exceed the outflows, and the basin fills up. So this is an arterial, stormwater conveyance that is critical. And this lot, partly sits on that basin. So what happens in heavy rains? The basin fills up, and it overtops the banks, and it floods 40 to 50 feet away from the creek. And so one of the concerns we have is that there's no hydrologic study. There's just, hey, it's a minor stream, let's move on. There's no problem here. I think there's a serious need for a hydrologic study to look at the behavior of stormwater under severe weather conditions. These multi-inch per hour events that we're getting, I mean, they just create a violent, fast-moving type of situation in that creek. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that there's an elevation issue here with the driveway. So the driveway, as described, is going to be squarely in the buffer, and the elevation difference between the creek and Briarwood Drive is about 14 feet. 14 feet. And that's going to have to be retained some way. So you look down on the right of the drive, down there, there's a creek. 14 feet up, there's a driveway. And I mean, I acknowledge that that can be partly natural grade, but there's going to be a retaining wall, and there's no elevation or engineering study of what that's going to look like. But it could be tall. You know, if it's an 8-foot retaining wall and there's a 3.5-foot top on top of that above the drive, we're talking about some big structure here. So we would like to see a proper analysis and presentation of elevations and the structure of that wall, just to make sure that, you know, it doesn't turn into some kind of disaster. Also, the center line of Briarwood Place will run directly into the end of that retaining wall. So you drive down Briarwood Place, thing you're going to see is this retaining wall. So contextually, this is just very, very awkward. The third thing I'd like to say is that there is a negative impact on neighbors. The lower front yard here is going to will be configured as a stormwater conveyance. So this is going to be an inferior type of configuration. So you've got the stormwater conveyance. You look over this wall. You've got this major flooding and heavy storms. The configuration of the lot is odd. So this is going to be an inferior lot. It's going to be an inferior build. It's not like other variance requests here where somebody's seeking to build something, much better, split the lot, build something. We're actually talking about building something worse. Whatever way you measure this, it's worse than what's there. And as somebody pointed out, Briars North is a North 50 type of development. So all the home values are very tightly coupled. And so one fire sale causes a reset downwards in comps for several years until a few more sales come in behind it. And so this is going to, I think, be a troubled property forever. I think it'll be potentially, frequently up for sale, difficult to sell, and discounted in order to succeed in the sale. Finally, there's no real argument around financial hardship, I think, on the applicant if the buffer is preserved. For decades, 4600 was paired with 4610. And there's a home on 4610, as you know. Both parcels were under common ownership. So 4600 served as a stream buffer, a detention basin, and natural habitat. Multiple builders evaluated this lot, over the years and decided it was infeasible to build. It's a big steep ravine with a creek at the bottom that floods. The current owner bought both properties in 2020, this 4610 and 4600, for 500,000. They sold just the house on 4610 this year for 720,000. That was a successful transaction that recouped whatever that green space investment was. And I would argue that, they bought green space, not a developable lot, and they still have the option to sell it as green space. That's still there. So there's no hardship here on the owner if this is preserved as natural green space. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next I call up Haley Laflemme. Did I say that correctly? Oh, was there? I didn't realize there's an order. Okay.
Yeah, I think the neighbors had a routine prepared, or like what is your name? So
Okay.
if Miss Laflamme agrees, is she in? Is that you? Then yeah, let us do the order with the neighbors.
Okay. I've paused it. It's okay. You're not getting any time taken away.
Bunch of cases on the agenda.
It's good to see you in person. It's nice to see you. I'm sorry. 4 minutes. But I've paused it.
Are these the photos you wanted?
Yes, that one.
Okay, great. Sorry, let me unshare and share this.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Samantha Gold and my family owns 4611 Briarwood Place, one home away from the lot in question. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Because of our limited time, I'll only briefly reiterate my opposition to the requested contextual street setback variance and refer to my written statement presented to the board about preserving the character and home values for the neighborhood. The remainder of my comments will focus on the requested steam buffer variance. My family has been part of this neighborhood since it was built. We did move into our home in 1989. Although I lived elsewhere for several years after college, I returned following the loss of my mother and have now lived back in Briars North for the past 18 years. I appreciate the time and effort that both the applicant and city staff have devoted to reviewing this application. My comments tonight are simply offered because my family's nearly 4 decades of experience beside the watershed provides a perspective that is important for the board to consider. I'm not opposed to development simply because it is new. The question before the board is not whether someone would like to build on this lot. The question is whether the applicant has demonstrated that these particular variances satisfy the standards required by the city's ordinances. Over nearly 4 decades, my family has experienced firsthand how this watershed behaves during major rain events. My parents' basement flooded repeatedly over the years. The damage eventually became so extensive that our finished basement had to be completely gutted due to black mold. Even after waterproofing, a dehumidifier is still necessary to control moisture. I've also known many of the homeowners who have lived in both 4607 and 4610 Briarwood Place over the years, and I'm aware of the recurring water issues that they have experienced and continue to experience, which are also documented in the written statements before the board. While the creek may appear relatively small during dry weather, I have personally observed and have also seen videos, as you can see here, the picture of it swell dramatically during major storms, expanding to approximately 40 to 50 feet across. During these storm events, the stream corridor clearly serves a critical flood buffering and stormwater management function for our neighborhood. That is why I remain concerned about the requested stream buffer variance. I recognize that the applicant has attempted to minimize the disturbance by placing the house outside the stream buffer. However, when a stream buffer is already performing a critical flood management function during major storms, even relatively modest changes deserve careful scrutiny before concluding that they have no meaningful impact. I'm particularly concerned about the addition of impervious surfaces associated with the proposed driveway and home. As you mentioned, reduce the amount of stormwater that can, the water that can soak into the ground and increase the volume and speed of stormwater runoff. In an area where neighboring homes have experienced flooding for decades, I do not believe the current record demonstrate that these additional impervious surfaces will not contribute to future flooding or adversely affect the stream corridor. Ultimately, I'm asking the board to determine whether the applicant has met the burden imposed by the ordinance. I appreciate the applicant has attempted to minimize the impact. However, minimizing an impact is not the same as demonstrating that the proposal is at least as protective of the stream buffer's environmental functions as the ordinance requires. Given the documented flooding history experienced by neighboring homeowners and the significant flood buffering role this stream serves during the major rain events, I respectfully do not believe the burden has been met. For those reasons, I respectfully ask that the requested variances be denied or at least deferred for further study. Thank you very much for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gold. We've got 30 seconds left, and I am, I think before we invite another speaker with 30 seconds left, I'm going to ask my board if they would like to vote to extend public comment time. And if that's the case, then we will extend it for both speakers in favor of the application and against, equal time for both sides.
I make a motion to extend public comment for 10 minutes on both sides.
Okay, I've got a motion. Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor? All right, we will extend public comment, and I'm going to continue with 10 minutes of comment for those speaking against. And then when that 10 minutes ends, we will open it up for 10 minutes of comment in favor of the application. Okay,
Okay, thanks. I don't have to talk as fast as I was going to.
but please state your name and your address.
Lindsay Ballou, I live at 4607 Briarwood Place, which is right next to the lot in question. Couple of things I just wanted to bring up. People are talking about the hardship for a hardship to adhere to the 75-foot stream buffer. We became a city to try to enact things like this 75-foot stream buffer. So shouldn't be a hardship just to do what we want, what we as a city have voted and agreed upon. I just thought that was a little out there, and 100% agree that that neighborhood could not be built today because of all that. So Mr. Brackbill is 100% accurate with that. Another thing he talked about was taxes. We looked up the taxes for this, and this lot has been paying $500 a year in taxes. If DeKalb County only charges you $500 a year for taxes, you know it's an unbuildable lot. I mean, that pretty much tells you that. They would get their money if it were a buildable lot. The 70-foot driveway and turnaround, that's going to be one big old slab of concrete, 30 to 40 feet in, and then another 35 over to the left, and it's going to have the big turnaround on there as well that wasn't really discussed. That is going to definitely impact the stormwater. And that's really what we're talking about. A lot of the stormwater issues, Frank laid it out really well, but I want to overemphasize the stormwater flies down the street as it hits there. I think we've got another picture of that, but that's okay. It looks like a waterfall coming through. And it does, believe it or not, it does back up a little bit. No, water doesn't flow backwards, but when it can't flow, it does start backing up to all the neighbors, many of the neighbors upstream. So it affects upstream and downstream. The neighbors in Laurelwood, I've seen pictures and videos of their yards. The guy right behind us, the yard floods out during the, when it floods out on our properties. Just a couple of other things. Other neighborhoods have had this issue as well. They've got one lot at the end that they can't really do anything with. What do? In Vernon Oaks, that became a pocket park. It'd be nice to do something like that. If people are talking about profits to the homeowners, they could get a tax benefit for somehow turning that into a pocket park. And to be honest, Harvey Park sounds pretty good. So really, just to finish up real quick, just consider the impact of the entire neighborhood. It is one of the most unique neighborhoods in the city. Somebody once called it almost historic. And so please deny the variances. If not, at least defer to get that study, a stormwater study that we would desperately need before anything is affecting it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. You all have your plan in place, so tell me who you are and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Haley LaFlame. I just purchased the property of 4610 Briarwood Place. I too thought it was a minor stream, but in approximately 4 months of living there, I have dealt with significant water intrusion, which was not told to me prior with purchasing the property. They also asked me if I would like to purchase that property next door when I bought this lot or bought my house. And when I found out I could not build on there and it could potentially hurt my investment on my bigger house that I just bought, I decided against it, considering I have dealt with that exact issue in my childhood home. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Brackbill just moments ago, and I couldn't help but notice that he parked perpendicular into that cul-de-sac in his, I believe it's a Tesla truck, because it's so small. He could not turn around. So to put things in perspective with how tiny things are for building, we actually just moved in, so we had a junk removal service come in, and it took him 2 hours to get out of there. All the neighbors came out to try to help him. He was very embarrassed, and we said, it's okay. We know it's a small lot. I would just like to point out that I did not purchase that lot because I did not want to mess up my main investment, which was the property I bought at 4610. I would argue that Mr. Brackbill has no investment and he has no loss currently, but we would all have a loss if that house was built. I have just bought a bunch of dehumidifiers at Home Depot. I just installed a bunch of French drains in the front yard. You know, and when I spoke to Mr. Brackbill moments ago, I had asked him directly, what were your plans for the storm drains and for the hydraulic studies? And he blatantly told me nothing. And when I said, well, I think it's important, he shrugged his shoulders and he said, well, it's already bad now. And that did not make me confident. And in fact, it made me very scared. And it made me feel more inclined to look at you guys directly and seriously consider all factors given here, to consider hydraulic studies and the inquiring neighbor properties being disrupted, all for the build of one home. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe we have one final comment, Peaches. Excuse me, if you could state your name and your address.
Peaches Sansom, 2590 Laurelwood Road. So I love my neighbors. All of their runoff comes to us, and it has. I bought the house in 1985. Got there first and still love you.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I love my neighbors. We have a wonderful neighborhood. But adding a huge bunch of cement and a house that will not allow for any water to be absorbed into the earth means that there will be tremendously more runoff. I'm not a scientist. I'm just smart enough to look. And we have a neighbor 2 doors down who have land. That house sells every 2 to 10 years in the time I've been here, because it's in a floodplain. And there's no reason to make it worse. They're not here representing themselves. They've been trying to sell it. They've tried 3 realtors. It just doesn't seem to sell. I wonder why. So please don't make it worse for these homeowners and the people downstream. I appreciate that they don't want to make it worse upstream, but we live downstream. We have houses in that neighborhood. And it's important that somebody look at this scientifically and pay attention. Thank you for listening to the other street involved.
Thank you. We've got 2 minutes. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition? Okay, then I'm going to close the opposition and I'm going to begin our 10 minutes of extended speaking time in favor of the applicant. Is there anyone here? What's that? No. If there's anything else you want to speak about in favor.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that. Can you pull the site plan back up on the screen a little bit?
Yeah, I'll take a second here if you want to swap spots. You can start.
So I wanted to address the first commenter who said that I'm gonna have to build a 7 or 8 foot retaining wall. The site plan has a grading plan for the driveway and it almost follows where the contours of the contours of the driveway within a few inches just to follow the existing grade, so that if there was a retaining wall required, it would be shown on this site plan. Generally, you can't build a retaining wall in a front yard, I don't believe. That's not going to happen. And I did meet the next door neighbor, and when she asked me about the stormwater, and just like I told y'all initially that I didn't plan on doing one, because normally when I apply for a variance, anything they want, they ask me for. And if they would have asked for a stormwater, but this is, there's, and I'm not an engineer either, but when I asked the guy that designed the site plan, who does the calculations on this, it really has minimal impact. I don't know who built the houses where the basements are flooding. I don't build houses that have basements that flood, because if you set the basement elevation up properly and you do proper grading, that's what's causing that problem. I don't know how what's going on downstream is going to impact that, and whether this lot gets built on or not. Those problems are still gonna, because they're inherent in the way they were built and constructed. And so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? No? Okay, I'm going to close public comment now. And I'm going to open it up for board discussion, comments, questions.
I think I'll start this time, and I'll start differently. I think I'm going to lay it out, and then maybe that'll spur up conversation. So I listened to everybody. I took notes. There was a repeating theme. And tell me if I'm wrong, but everyone that spoke, all their houses are upstream, right? That means, is the house I'm going to call it the Brackbill house because Mr. Brackbill, because he's the bottom, right?
No, someone spoke from Laurel, which is this, somebody spoke from Laurelwood Drive, which is the house behind the subject property. It's
Okay, so
it's downstream from it.
first question I'm going to ask the board, maybe because they said it and I missed that part. But did you guys get how the potentially new built property is gonna affect the runoff from the other properties?
I think the concern is that it's going to pool and potentially back up, because adding impervious surface in an area that already has drainage issues, it sounds like there needs to be some significant
Okay.
re-engineering
So
done there.
there we go. So that's so the problem, and I'm not right now as I'm analyzing this. It doesn't seem like the new house is causing a problem. It might be a worse problem probably, but there seems to be a problem in that neighborhood that's going to continue to exist, and it seems as if some type of study has to be done. And my question is that who's got to pay for that study? I think everyone in the neighborhood wants the study because they want to know, hey, what's happening here? But I'm not quite sure whether this new property, built or not built, is going to fix their problem. And I'm pretty sure it's not, from listening to everybody, because what I don't have is, yeah, and I heard the part about the driveway. It's going to be long. It might go and add to and it might be more of a pool, and there's just all this stuff that's happening. But the problems there I don't think they're going to be contributed. They're going to be, this is not going to resolve anything. That's what I see. I mean, whatever we decide here. The second thing is, as far as, and this one works for the applicant, whether he planned it or not, is that the house seems to already being in the stream buffer. There's no way they could do anything but go into the stream buffer. So that kind of helps them. If I'm him, I'm grabbing that because, hey, listen, that's going to give me a hardship. It's going to give me something different than everybody else. We don't get too many of those. Usually they want, but this one, he's already fighting an uphill battle. So what we have to decide on the board, it seems, is, okay, are we going to grant this variance because we think he deserves it, or are we not going to grant it because we probably don't want to add more to the problems, but we're not going to fix the problems. We're not necessarily going to make it worse or not worse unless, and the study is, I don't think the code requires the study. I'm pretty sure from what I read at least. So now, Is it something that the city's supposed to pay for to make the neighborhood better? Questions. That's it. I'm just laying it out for you guys. I mean, I'm not there, but this is what my brain is going, and I kind of want us to talk about that.
No, I think it's an important conversation, Artie. And I think that one of the concerns that I have is that, again, we are continuing to hear water intrusion concerns, flooding concerns. And I think we're also aware that a couple of things have happened. And so I do have some stormwater management questions that I'll get to. But one of the concerns that I have is that from a stormwater perspective, we're having serious conversations in the city about the impact on homes, the impact on the environment. And so I don't know if it's the responsible thing to do and be like, well, you know what, c'est la vie, we're going to add another 2,000 2,200, square feet worth of impervious space, and it's only 1/8 of an inch that stream is going to rise. But what about every other thing that we're approving that is that 1/8 inch? And so now, yeah, we're not going to solve this, but we don't have to add to it either. And so I think that's where we're at. And look, this home, as it was pointed out, that property was paired with a previous one, and then it was tried to be sold together. And there is history that we can look at and say, like, look, it wasn't developed. Just because someone has a property doesn't mean that it can be developed or it's smart to develop it, because there are overall impacts. So the question is developing this property going to have a negative impact on a neighbor above? Well, no, maybe not. On the neighbor below, very possibly, but on the system in general, on the stormwater flow in general, will it have an impact? Yes. Who are we to measure what level, what percentage of an impact is going to have? Because I think we need to start being wise that we're seeing a lot of impacts, and our decision from Mother Nature, 5 inches of rain in an hour, and now, the little things that we do will also compile onto that. So I am sensitive to that in this discussion, we have to be aware that we are seeing challenges. And I think here's a good illustration of what I'm talking about. When we were building a playhouse for our kids, and my husband was doing construction of it, and we were at the one corner, and it just was a little bit off from being a perfect right corner. And he's like, no big deal. No big deal. And I was like, dude, by the time we got to the other end of the playhouse, that a little bit of not being a perfect right corner was a large issue. And so I think that's where I'm thinking about this, that maybe this one property doesn't feel like it's too off from being a perfect right corner, but as we get down the line, we're going to start seeing larger impacts from these types of decisions.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate and say that if we do approve this, the neighborhood might end up getting some relief, because something will have to be done. This lot will have to finally be looked at. And if we don't approve it, nothing's going to happen and nothing is going to change for them, because who's going to fix that? If we actually say, you know what, we'll grant this, we'll allow you to put in more impervious surface, there has to be studies involved. There has to be, it has to go in front of a permitting process, and red flags may come up, and there may be, from that, the neighborhood may get some answers as to what's happening. Otherwise, they're going to be living with this forever.
I like where your head's at there. I'm skeptical. I mean, nothing against the city. The city is taking a very offhands approach to stormwater in general. I could have a beer with anyone in this room and probably talk millions of questions and examples of that. But that's not under our purview. You know what I mean? Like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's fair to either party to hold hostage a decision that isn't really a part of what we're deciding on. But I like where your head's at too, because that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe they'll expose more things. On the other hand, just because I'm all about that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Let's just say hypothetically, applicant gets his variance pass. The city can come back and throw a whole skew of things at him that he needs to do to remediate, to do studies and what have you. At which point he may or may not decide maybe this isn't for me. This is way more money than what I was expecting. It's kind of a lost opportunity either way. Yeah, it still exposes what needs to be done, what the problems are, but what's going to happen until someone acquires that property, the city, anyone, who knows? It's a separate issue. It's a directly impacted issue, which is why all these folks are here today saying, "Hey, don't make it worse." That is the theme that I heard. I understand that this gentleman wants to build a property. He's within his rights to do so with under the laws that we've developed for this. But they're just saying, don't make the situation any worse than it is by adding fuel to the fire. We're adding water in this case, but I just, it's for me, it's kind of like I'm over it already. I was quite frankly surprised that the city even recommended it. However, it's one of I just kind of fall back on saying you got to sometimes you got to save the applicant from himself, and to me that's a win-win because I don't personally think the applicant you do not want this property. I mean, that's just my opinion. That's where my head's at. But
Ironically, right, the applicant could be the bearer of most of the damage, right? As all this water pools down into his front yard, most likely. The only thing that's before us, there's a lot of things we could say. Well, is all the impervious, the foliage that they take out for the house? He can build the house by right, and we wouldn't have a meeting here tonight if he had a way to get into it, right? So the house is not on the table. Clearing the lots not on the table. Is this driveway, if we determine it's 50 feet from the stream, if we determine putting a driveway there is going to be hugely adversely affect, I don't know, Miss Peaches and downstream, maybe. We don't know that, right? We're not hydrologists. But the decision here is fairly narrow, what we can write, and we can't make the city's stormwater treatment policies here tonight, but it's a fairly narrow decision that we have to in front of us today. And you're right. And the city has looked at it more so than any of us, at least preliminarily, before the permitting process, and said the variance probably would fly. If this was a neighborhood that wasn't getting all this flooding, it wouldn't be that big of a deal for most people. But it is an issue with that neighborhood, and it's going to continue to be. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be considered, but yet there's very little to be considered because it's a very finite thing that's before us here tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna just make a very quick comment. One of our variance criteria for stream buffer variances is that the grant of the variance will not be material detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the area in which the property is located. And I don't have confidence that approving this would meet that criteria as it stands. If there were a study that had been done, then that gave me some confidence, then maybe I could see considering approving it, but I don't feel that anything I've heard tonight tells me this isn't going to cause more damage. So I'm going to leave it at that.
So to play devil's advocate, maybe this is a question for the city. Let's say hypothetically we deny this variance, and it would be another 2 years to come back to reapply. Is that correct for any type of variance? Okay. So, gentlemen, the applicant that is applying for this variance said he's contractually contingent upon the property itself and has not quite purchased it, if you will. So skin in the game, but nothing lost, so to speak, so far, aside from whatever fees he's paying doing this. Is there any compromise of sorts between the applicant and the city in terms of making it a condition to do any type of study relative to the issues going on in accordance of the stream buffer variance itself? so that both parties can get answers.
And we worked with the city engineer on this to review this. The problem is that the type of study that you would do, which is a hydrology study, for a project like this would show that there's negligible impact. That's because of the square footages. It would be modeled based on the Georgia Stormwater Manual, and that is just intended for larger projects. So like for these smaller projects, that there is no formal engineering study because it is you could require one that would show that there is no impact pretty much because of the square footage that's involved. The what we have prepared a few items that they're all sort of a little bit tricky in their own right. That if we're thinking in terms of mitigation, that sort of the 2 trees go sort of in that direction to because it stabilizes the soil. The option could be either to see if the driveway can be done sort of as a pervious type, either with pavers. A second option could be what Board Member Harris, what you had proposed, sort of like to review these type of stormwater mitigation devices to do runoff reduction. We have sort of potential language for a condition prepared in case that is desired. The crux of it is these things may not work. Like that's if we're taking sort of the neighbors' comments at face value, and I've seen the same videos, where it's a pretty rough water conditions. It might be that the soils are legitimately too wet, pretty much to infiltrate that. So these we might put in a pervious driveway, but the soils underneath can't infiltrate the water. That there's a possibility for that, so we haven't really accomplished anything. But we could sort of put a condition in that subject to soil tests functioning, something like that would have to be installed. I think that in my mind, the better way to do it would be to condition it to the standard that stormwater management ordinance would apply if it met the minimum standards, instead of asking for a study that probably wouldn't show sort of significant impacts. And then the third, so first item, potentially looking at the driveway, since that's in the stream buffer area. The second, looking at sort of stormwater mitigation measures, even if the threshold isn't met. And then the third one is to ask the applicant, because the issue might be the conveyance, because for the flooding in the neighborhood, whatever he does with any of this won't have impact because it's upstream. So, but what the issue might be is that either the concrete flume isn't functioning properly. There might be sort of debris or objects that create sort of localized blockages, and would be sort of the added condition to review that as part of the permitting process.
But who determines or evaluates whether the fume is not working properly? Is it the city?
It could potentially, we would let the city engineer look at this, do sort of a site inspection.
That would be part of the permitting process?
Part of the permitting process. Depending on what the city engineer finds, there might need to be an engineering type solution. It might be just that there's something that just needs to be repaired. Can't say offhand what the solution would be.
Is just curious, is the neighborhood's road public or private?
It is a public right of way.
And it in the picture you all have with the open channel inflow from Briarwood Place, it looks like the flume comes from the street.
That's correct.
And so if it comes from the street, it would, in my mind, it would be a city, at least partly the city's responsibility.
Yeah, it could be. It looks based on this image that the flume is partially on city property, it's partially on private property. There could be maintenance responsibilities if, and I'm not saying we haven't studied this, right? I don't know if that is an actual concern. It would be just a requirement to study it.
I mean, I'm thinking that if the city were to study it or something's done, then even for the applicant, they'll give them an idea of whether or not I want to actually continue with this or not. Because I'm thinking, if I'm the applicant, I'm thinking, okay, driveway, and should I do the driveway? Well, it's probably going to affect them, maybe, but like he says, I didn't create it. But then the second thing is, maybe you make something that's impervious, depending on what we know the condition. And part of it, from a legal evidence standpoint, we've got the neighbors, they presented, they give you the videos, right? But there's nobody's giving you a study that's, yes, that's what it is. All of us are thinking the most logical one. But if the city could help in making a determination for us a little bit more, I think it'll help everybody, and even in the future, at least they'll know what the story is in their neighborhood. I'm thinking, but then yeah.
I mean, Artie, this is hard because I think one of the things that we're missing in the city, and look, this is not just a city of Dunwoody issue. I've spoken with our commissioner. This is a state issue. This is a, county issue. We are, and this is a national issue. I was just in California and they're dealing with stormwater issues as well. So, one thing that Dunwoody would benefit from is is looking at our stormwater plan, looking at the infrastructure we need, looking at the impacts that are happening. And, that's for situations like this with this flume and these public streets. And, it is impacting neighbors. So I hear what we're talking about, that this home in particular isn't going to impact the folks who are geographically above the home. However, we have heard from a resident who is geographically below the home. And it's almost like the starfish, except for this is the negative starfish. So like, does this one starfish, it matters to this one, except for this one, it does matter a little bit. So whether it's negligible or not, I think that we have a lot of questions here. We're not going to solve the stormwater plan. I hope the city is hearing feedback that we need to address stormwater issues and that we need to come up with a comprehensive plan and do some serious studying of it. But in this situation, I liked Ryan's, his thought process of, are you saving someone from themselves a little bit because of the issues that we're looking at? And those pictures and those videos were compelling. That was serious flooding happening.
You had made a good point about detrimental to the health of others too. I mean, downstream, upstream, I know water flows downstream, but no matter what, there's something going on with that area. I think everyone knows that. Again, it's like this. I'm just not convinced that it's going to make it any better. It's not a matter of if or what. Just building in an area that's already deeply disturbed and causing issues, even from upstream, is presumably going to carry that downstream. And anytime you deal with flooding, you got the after effects of that. You're going to have mold remediation and stuff like that. People with health conditions. I mean, that's kind of hanging on me too. I don't know.
I like how Tara's devil's advocate thought process conceptualized that approving it could potentially bring about some remediation, but we just can't guarantee that approving it wouldn't create even more damage downstream and potentially back up. And we just don't know.
Yeah.
Is there?
So before the decision, like I said, I don't know, my question wasn't answered. Is it a possibility that the city might be able to find out if they studied or not of anything about the fume of if the plume, or maybe that there's something that can be done?
And I didn't want to say that we're prepared to saying that we're studying the overall stormwater system in this area. That's a different department. It's not part of this process. That this would be what we would do is do a site visit with our civil engineer who would sort of visually identify if there's any blockages. That would be sort of more or less the extent of what we would do as part of the development of this project of this home.
Okay.
So I think what we have to decide is, can we make a motion and come to have a vote on the on the case in front of us, or do we decide to defer pending the information that we request? Or I mean, those are our two options right now. I think we can't just.
I would like to defer because that's the only way the neighborhood's going to get any help.
I don't think-
Otherwise, it's going to just.
But I don't
be
think there's
bad.
there's nothing at this point the applicant can do short of funding So it's really it's just that driveway going in the stream buffer. That's it, right? So all this other stuff, I know we're talking about it ad nauseum, but if we defer pending what? The city has from what I understand, no obligation to do anything additional because it's the applicant who is applying for the variance, not the city, right?
But wouldn't they check I mean, if we deny this, everything stays the same and the neighborhood just continues to flood.
Unless the neighborhood can petition the city to come and check I mean, I feel we hear you. We hear all these issues. We are not equipped to, we want the problem to be solved for you, but I don't think with the case in front of us, we have a guarantee that it can be if we were to approve it.
Was the city kind of hinting that if we approve with condition that they would do it? Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel similar to, so the deferment for me is like, have the city come back and tell us what those conditions are. It's similar to the property that wasn't our job necessarily to determine what would be appropriate. In here, the feedback we're providing is enough for them to go, okay, all right. And in particular, the developer, and I'll be very honest, the developer has seemed reticent to provide any sort of studies and whatnot. Like I did not hear, it was more like, well, not required. So, and so I don't necessarily have faith in the developer's interest, like in this beginning part, to go above and beyond and to meet the concerns that are being expressed. So I guess my question is the city, if we defer, can the city come back having heard these concerns, having seen the videos, and they create what they believe would be recommendations for us to put as conditions for development?
That's one option, but I think if we require it, I don't know if we could do that.
I have another idea, Paul. Let me ask this. This is going to be interesting. If we hypothetically were to deny this, is there any way to make a motion to deny the variance, but allow the applicant to come back to the table, having reworked with the city, without having to wait 2 years to reapply?
I would have to look it up in the code. I think there's a process where it can be voted on to bring it back, but in that case, I would rather recommend a deferral to see if something can be found, and if that's satisfactory, then then it can be approved, and if it's not satisfactory, it can still be denied at that time.
I think then you would, if you go that route, and I'm not saying you want to, I know you're hypothetically exploring, then I think you would also have to be prepared that if they come back and say, all right, we found a blockage in this area and we've cleared it, then you have to be prepared to approve the variance request and put that concrete driveway in and accept that there could be further downstream effects.
Guys,
and
here's what,
impacts.
here's what I'm thinking. Listen, the easy thing is to deny this. I'm telling you. Okay? You know it's going to affect somebody. But I think to help the neighborhood, I think deferring is probably better. Now, I'm just thinking. Because it's going to force somebody to do something or to think more about this thing. They made some possible promises that might come to fruition. But listen, if you deny it, you know what happens? You deny it, we all go home, they get the thing, and then after that, but this thing's gonna keep going, guys. You know, the only thing is they're gonna have a nice little pool in the bottom. You know, it might rise up or something, but nothing's gonna happen. I mean, but I'm saying you, the easiest thing is okay. See you later, and that's that.
I don't want to, what would be the word, confiscate, like both, two things. I think that the flooding that the folks above are having is an issue that needs to be solved, and they need to work with city council in order to address that. We are not going to solve that in this situation. In my mind, what we're talking about is, are we, in approving the development, are we adding to the downstream problem, which would affect the downstream people? And so that's the question in the forefront of my mind, which if we defer and have the city work with the developer to come back with remediation issues to mitigate the impervious, square footage, to mitigate the ripping down of trees that are going to reduce the slowing of the water down to the water or down to the stream. Like, those are the things that we can solve. I don't want to confuse the two situations. I think that, Broward North needs to work with city council to address part A. That's not part of this conversation. We have seen videos of flooding, and so we're trying to address how will developing this continue to contribute to that, which could impact the folks below.
Great.
Okay, so maybe somebody make a motion to defer it, and so we could possibly get more answers next time and possible resolving things.
So if we defer, our typical time frame is 2 months to the meeting that would be 2 months from this one, which would be the September meeting. That's if we pass a vote to defer, or we can approve, or we can vote to deny.
I'll make a motion. I'm making a motion to defer ZBA 2613 to the September meeting in order to provide the city and developer time to address the concerns with water management and stormwater mitigation for the property.
Okay, I have a motion to defer.
I second.
And I have a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that was 1, 2, 3, 5. Everyone voted in favor except me. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to defer passes 5-1 with the to the September zoning meeting, and the purpose of the deferral. Could you restate that for the record?
The deferral is for the city and for the developer to work together to address the concerns with flooding and stormwater mitigation from the property development.
Yeah. And possibly give us some more answers to some of the questions addressed here. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone who made public comments. We appreciate your time and comments. Okay. Thank you again. Staff, I believe we are ready to move on to our next 2 cases.
Yes, I'll just give everyone a moment to file out so that we can hear ourselves clearly. All right, so the final two cases of the evening are a similar format to the first two cases of the evening, where it's two separate lots, two separate cases, and two separate houses, but one project from one developer, and they tie into each other a little bit. And so I will present them together, and then we will do separate public comment portions and separate motions. So it's ZBA 26-14, 1348 Noreen Circle, and ZBA 26-15, 1340 Noreen Circle. I have it listed out here. I also have a slide that I think indicates a little bit more clearly what they're asking for. But for 1348 Noreen Circle, they need a special exception to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, and two variances, one to allow a wing wall to encroach into the side setback, and one to allow encroachment into the 75-foot stream buffer to allow for stormwater management improvements. For 1340 Noreen Circle, they have two of the same. So one special exception to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, and a variance to allow wing wall to encroach into the side setback, and additionally another special exception to allow front door threshold elevation above contextual requirements. Again, we know these are kind of complex, and some of them are ones that you guys don't see very often, if ever. So feel free to ask any questions, and hopefully we'll make it make sense by the end. So 1348 Noreen Circle is to the right, and 1340 Noreen Circle is to the left. And again, if you are standing on the street looking at both of these lots, that's the same orientation. So 1340 Noreen Circle was previously developed with a two-story single-family home that has been recently demolished, and 1348 Noreen Circle is undeveloped. A stream runs along the western property line for both properties, and so the western half of both properties has a 25-foot state buffer and a 75-foot stream buffer. Both properties slope down approximately 40 feet from the front property line to the rear property line. The proposed elevations are to the left, and the wing wall is shown to the left. As a quick note about wing walls, they are similar to retaining walls, but they are always attached to the foundation of the house. For your purposes, they're very similar. It's just that they have slightly different zoning requirements, and we call them different things. But again, a wing wall also serves to retain, and additionally, it is attached to the foundation of the house. It's really part of the foundation of the house. It just extends beyond the building footprint. Additionally, to the right, you can see the site plan with both properties shown side by side. So again, there are 3 requests for each one, and 2 of them are the same for both. So I will address those 2 at the beginning. As a quick note of clarification, originally for 1348 Noreen Circle, there was a request for an additional special exception for the front door threshold elevation. That has been removed. The applicant has reconfigured it so that they're just going to comply with the formula that we use to calculate front door threshold elevation. So at any point, I'm happy to go back to this page if it's helpful to clarify which property is asking for which item. And I'm also happy to explain more about the front door threshold elevation process if need be. So first, I'll address the contextual street setback special exception, as the criteria are the same for both properties. And so for both properties, the front facade of the new house must be located within the range of street setbacks observed by the 2 neighboring properties on either side. We've been seeing a lot of those this evening. In this case, the range is approximately 43 feet to 95 feet. As we've already talked about, Noreen Circle has pretty big ranges for street setbacks that are observed. The applicant proposes to build both houses closer to the street at a 35-foot street setback, which prompts a contextual street setback special exception. And so within this subdivision, typical street setbacks again range from about 38 feet to 70 feet, but some of them are much larger than that. And so with a street setback of 35 feet, the new home will not appear out of scale for this subdivision, and the proposed encroachment does not constitute a grant of special privilege, as it will conform to the typical R100 street setback regulations. Without accounting for the unique conditions of the property, the strict application of the contextual street setback regulations could prevent new construction. Additionally, just as a quick note about 1340 Noreen Circle, which is the house to the left, the existing house was set back significantly further and sort of down on the lower part of the property. The applicant has moved that closer to the street and further away from the 75-foot stream buffer. And so that's part of the reason for the contextual street setback request. So for both houses, the wing wall will encroach into the side setback, and the two wing walls will essentially meet in between the homes in order to provide additional support. In order to construct both houses, a large amount of backfill will be needed and will require support in the form of a wing wall. Additionally, both houses will have a side entry garage, which necessitates the wing wall in order to create a flat turnaround space and then facilitate the transition down to a walkout basement. So to sort of account for the grade change between those two areas. The side setback variance request for the wing wall thus appears to be the minimum necessary to afford relief, and the wing wall is considered a relatively minor improvement. So the additional variance request for 1348 Noreen Circle, which is ZBA 26-14, is a stream buffer variance request. And so so there is an existing stormwater outlet located at the northeast corner of the property. And let me just show that very briefly here. So up here, right about where it says stop share, where my mouse is, that's an existing stormwater outlet. And so that produces outflow that flows along the stream towards the rear property line. The stormwater runoff has caused severe erosion on the property, and so the applicant proposes to backfill the eroded channel and create a new open ditch. The new ditch will have features such as landscaping fabric and large rocks to prevent erosion and slow down the runoff, which is an improvement for the protection of natural resources and the environment. The stream buffer covers almost half of the subject property, limiting opportunities for development without encroachment, and the proposed open ditch will not increase stormwater runoff. It will merely reroute existing runoff in a more controlled, managed solution. And the other request for ZBA 26-15, 1340 Noreen Circle, is a front door threshold elevation special exception request. So the new house will have a front door threshold elevation of 1030, which is in line with surrounding properties. 1356 Noreen Circle and 1336 Noreen Circle have front door threshold elevations of 1030 and 1029 feet respectively. And so the goal behind the front door threshold elevation regulations is written to ensure that new properties are at a consistent elevation with the surrounding neighborhood. And so staff does believe that that will be true here, and that the request does not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other similarly situated properties, and that the new house will not appear out of scale for this subdivision. So based on that, we are recommending approval on all of the requests before you this evening for both cases. And so for ZBA 26-14, that's the request to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, allow a wing wall to encroach into the side setback, and to allow encroachment into the 75-foot stream buffer for stormwater management improvements, subject to our two standard conditions. For ZBA 26-15, it's the same as the first two, the new house to encroach into the contextual street setback range, allowing a wing wall to encroach into the side setback, and additionally to allow front door threshold elevation above contextual requirements, also subject to our standard conditions shown on the screen here.
Okay, thank you so much. Board, any questions for staff right now?
Just a clarification, did you say the two wing walls of each house are going to actually connect?
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be like a solid wall between the two homes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you described what I think a wing wall is, but can you help contextually talk a little bit more about its purpose, or maybe the applicant can do that, but
Yeah, it's very similar to a retaining wall in the sense that it's retaining dirt and fill and that sort of thing. But what makes a wing wall different from the retaining wall is that it is connected to the foundation of the house. It's not a freestanding wall. It's really part of the foundation of the house that extends beyond the building footprint.
Okay, so just retain, not necessarily divert per se.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Would the applicant please come forward and present your case and state your name and address, please?
Good evening. My name is Jim Milam, and I live at 4881 Dunwoody Club Drive. And I've been a Dunwoody resident for about 25 years now. So as we've heard already, Noreen Circle is very difficult street, and this is these two lots have some extreme topographical difficulties. So a little bit of history. There was a house on the lot to the left, probably one of the original houses, and a gentleman and his wife lived there for about 50 years. She passed away. He was a widower there, living by himself for probably 15 years. And he owned the vacant lot to the right. So he owned both of these. And a couple of years ago, a big storm came through and 4 big pine trees fell on his house. I think he's in his mid 80s, and I talked to him several times. We almost became friends over this, and he said, "That's it. I'm too old to try to rebuild this house." And he decided to move on and put it up for sale, and I was the buyer. So, yeah, I can address each of these. So the contextual setbacks, there is the 75-foot stream buffer behind me. So that very limits the buildable footprint. So his house was built when there was a 25-foot stream buffer. So his house set further back. But I'm looking to move the house just 4 or 5 feet closer to the street than the contextual setbacks calculations define it, just to give myself a little more buildable footprint. And it does stay in line with the houses, especially to the right. Every house on that back side of that horseshoe on this side of the road, they're all below the curb, and they're pretty close to the street because of the topography. So again, respectfully request to move it 4 or 5 feet closer to the street on both lots. The wing wall is necessary because both houses will have full basements to get the house kind of up in the air, get it closer to curb level. Still be below the curb, but it'll at least not be down in a hole. If anybody ever saw that gentleman's house, I don't know how he got up and down his driveway. His house was way down there. So that's not practical. So there'll be basements, and then they will have to be backfill in front of both houses. So the wing walls will, like I say, a wing wall is a retaining wall that's attached to the house, and they will come together like this, and the backfill will go against it. If I was not the same builder on both lots, this would be totally impractical. You couldn't have one wing wall without the other. There would be nothing to hold back the backfill dirt. So this was just a way to solve that problem of all the backfill needed in front of the houses. So then I guess the other request is dealing with the stormwater runoff coming off the street. So this neighborhood was developed in the mid 1950s, and the water comes down the streets and then goes out off the curb toward the stream. And it's two 16-inch pipes side by side. So this water has been running for 70 years with nothing to stop it. And it has created, I think the right word is a ravine.
that, starts just a few feet deep, but by the time it gets to the stream buffer, it's, I don't know, it's 10, 12 feet deep. And it has just become worse over the decades. So that really needs to be addressed. For my property, I just met my new neighbors here that live to the right. I mean, they have a fence that is right there, and then it starts dropping off into this ravine. So my plan is to backfill that ravine and create a nice, gentle ditch for this water to go in, which will be a big improvement, I think, for my property and for theirs, that this ravine won't, over the coming decades, just get worse and worse and worse. So the where that channel currently goes would be very close to the corner of the new house. So that's part of the reason to move it over to the right, a few feet. And so the request is to be able to go into the buffer a few feet to let the water get on heading toward the stream instead of falling back into the current channel, which is problematic. So of course the ditch would be totally on my property, and again, a ditch that may be 8 or 10 feet wide, and I don't know, 3 feet deep, with landscape fabric that'll keep it from eroding in the future, and rocks and so forth to slow down the flow of the water as it goes out. So did I address all three? Is there anything else I didn't address? Front door threshold. Yes. So again, on the property to the left, because that existing house was in such a hole, need to raise it up to get it more in line with all the other houses on the back of the horseshoe. Like I think the house to the left is at 1030, 1031, and that's what I'm requesting. The house to the right is also in that 1031, 32. So it'll, as you look at it now, instead of having a house in a hole, you'll have two new ones that are very close in elevation to the ones to the right and the left.
Okay, thank you. I am now going to open for public comment. And we will do separate public comments. Thank you. Okay, so we will first start off with public comments for ZBA 2614, which is 1348 Noreen Circle. And I got my first commenter, and I want to pronounce your name correctly. Channy. Okay, if you will please come forward and state your name and address.
My apologies. This is my first time doing anything like this. We just bought our first home and moved in just a few months ago. So we just found out who our new neighbors are potentially. My name is Chandni Bhakta. I'm at 1356 Noreen, and not in opposition for the build. I just have a lot of questions that I'm trying to understand and get answered. But it's more of the storm drainage. I've learned a lot of terminology today, but the storm drainage system that Mr. Jim was talking about, moving it a few feet. What does that entail? What are the plans? Because there's a lot of trees. So is he going to be tearing out all of those trees? What does all of that entail? But then also in terms of the width of it, I understand it's a deep ditch, but what the city's protocol is for the width of a storm drainage like that. So I was trying to understand how that would affect. And then, I know he spoke about some drainage, shrubbery and landscaping. So I just wanted to, I guess, understand more of the plans of, how they're going to be distributed, and then preventing erosion. But then I didn't know if I didn't understand the wing wall, if it's like a retaining wall, how that was going to affect the stormwater, because again, we do live in the downslope and all that water does drain down to where our two properties are. And when it does rain, it does create, a gush, a flow. And so if we don't see and address that properly, I just want to make sure that it's not going to cause flooding into our home, because if he's talking about moving it a few feet closer to our area, and we're cutting trees and we're cutting the natural native herbs, the native shrubs that are there to soak up the water, I just want to make sure that the plan is also appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
This is my husband.
If you could state your name and address, please.
I'm Amit Bhakta. I'm also at 1356 Doreen. Yeah, the main thing is currently the way it is our right on the other side of our fence, there's a few feet before the ravine, as he called it, which is, I agree, it's like a big ravine. My concern is that with him enlarging it or moving it to the right towards our fence, how will the ditch like that prevent the erosion from still occurring? I would anticipate the erosion would continue, especially up at the street level, going down over time. And if it's closer to our property, what are the implications? Because essentially what I'm envisioning is directly on the other side of our current fence, there will be a hole where the will eventually, I mean, because there's only a few feet there. So I guess that's our biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Kelly.
James Kelly, 1310. I live a few houses away and I share the concern. Right there, the storm drain is just basically a concrete culvert. And right now the ditch, as Jim would say, I mean, it's deep and there is some erosion involved. I actually, before they bought the house, redid the deck for the previous owner, and several of the storms, it is a river because all the water from Noreen Circle, that's the one outlet right there. So all that pavement coming from both directions for hundreds of feet all pours in there and it comes down the hill. But I do have concerns more so for the neighbors who, when you're moving it to the right, there are a number of mature trees. I mean, there's an oak tree this big around, the trees all the way down the property line, and they are, I think, for the most part, on their property. But to move this culvert to the right is going to require to pretty much take out all the trees down the property line. And the culvert may serve the purpose of moving the water, but there's going to be some associated problems, especially for the neighbors. And again, I'm not exactly sure how close it's going to get to their fence, but it is a lot of water. As I said previously, contextually on the setbacks, on the curve there, he's got quite the challenge, and it's not going to affect the neighborhood because I spoke my piece on contextuality, but these are not going to be a problem and it's not going to be a problem with the door below the street. As he said, there's all the rest of the houses have the doors below the street, but and the wing wall makes perfect sense to hold back the dirt, so I don't see a problem on that either. But I don't know what can be done at this stage, either to break it out or to make requirements that there be meetings where the homeowners are included with the city. And it's not just his decision, how they're going to put this channel in, that there should be, I think, some dialogue with the neighbor to come up with a situation that helps him, serves his purpose, but understanding how much water comes through that culvert. And I am telling you, it is a lot of water. So, and how it ties into the stream buffer doesn't affect them. Once it gets past their side property, how he wants to flare it out and tie it in is a city issue. That's not a concern for the neighborhood, but it is a concern about how that ditch is constructed and where it's placed and what trees get taken out according to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I did not properly begin the public comment section with comments in favor. So is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition or who has any additional questions? I wouldn't categorize either of yours as for or against, but simply questions. You had questions, that's legitimate. Okay, at that point, I will close public comment and I will open it up for board discussion and discussion.
Yeah, I'd just ask the applicant to kind of address the whole moving the ravine and removal of trees and foliage, and can you kind of address those concerns that they brought up? Give us some more specifics around that.
Yes, and let me say I met with the city stormwater representative to look at this because I mean, from a practical standpoint, it seemed to me like this water is coming off a city street. It should be, the city should have some responsibility from how it gets from the street to the stream. And I don't think I'm the first one to bring this up. No. So, but you know, they said, well, it's on your property. You've got to do what you need to do. So, again, I'm not coming here tonight to ask permission to do it on my own property. My request is, can I go into the buffer 25 feet to get a better outflow to the stream? But I understand the concerns and
Can I address, for example, the tree removal, the width of the ditch, how it's going to prevent erosion and the design, how it may or may not impact the neighbors?
right. So, I mean, the main thing I'm trying to do is to end the existing 70-year erosion. That ravine needs to be filled in and start over with a ditch that has some thought and design to it. I mean, 70 years ago, they just said, let's put 2 pipes and let the water go. And we see what happened over 70 years. So now the water will come out of those 2 pipes into a ditch that will not be as steep, because the steeper it gets, the more it erodes and causes problems. So the ditch will probably be 8 to 10 feet wide, probably closer to 8 feet wide. Again, about 3 feet. So it's, you know, it's very gentle like this. Look at it in profile. And of course, it'll be totally on my property. At the top of the hill where it comes off the street, and the erosion isn't as bad there. So it'll start there, and then it will shift to the right to get out of the original path as it goes down toward the stream. Now, unfortunately, along the property line there are several large trees, most of them poplars. And if you go out and look, and I was out there, I even called the city arborist to look at it, and I probably should have included some pictures. On several of these trees, the root system is totally exposed because this erosion has gone right through their root system. So, I mean, I'm not an expert, but it looks like over time, those trees will be jeopardized by the erosion through them. So, yeah, it looks like most of those trees along there on my property will have to come down to be able to backfill the existing channel and create a new channel.
Oh, no. No, just as you're there, I think one of their concern was how close it's gonna be to their property. And I think he's not worried, but I feel that he's like, is my property gonna start sinking down or something? Or there's gonna be some type of
But you did make it, but you did make it clear it's gonna be on your property. I think that's key for you guys to understand, because then you have more options, right? Or, you know, you could put a fence or something. I mean, just,
They've got it.
I get it's gonna be a change, but that is a key distinction.
I think they have a fence, and the concern is that if the ditch that's put in will create erosion that might affect their fence. So one of the questions I have, you did a great job explaining it's going to be 8 to 10 feet wide. I think 3 feet, like a slope like this. What will be inside the ditch? Are you going to use river rock? Is it going to be foliage, grass? Like what is the intention? Because if it's just dirt, then we're creating a runaway and then
Right,
it's
and
going to
no,
erode.
no,
Thank you,
no,
Erica,
no,
for
no.
clarifying.
So there's a fabric. It's not landscape fabric because this is heavy duty. No, ripraps is the rocks, but this fabric is geotech fabric that you know you'll create the dirt part of the ditch, and then you put in this fabric
Yeah.
that keeps the water from digging into the soil, and on top of that fabric you put riprap or you know these round type rocks, and the rocks keep the bottom of the ditch in place, and more importantly slow down the flow of the water so you don't get the erosion. And maybe what I hadn't been clear about is that as it comes off the street, the ditch will be kind of the existing ditch for about the first 20-25 feet. I mean, if you look over, you'll see there's a ditch there, but it's about this deep. So we'll backfill that with rocks and soil, and then the new ditch with this design I've just described will be in place. So the new ditch will actually be higher than the old ditch, which will slow down the water. So by the time it gets further down, on 50, 75 feet off the curb, the ditch is significantly higher, which is I think better for both of us. Probably the biggest detriment, and I just don't see any way around it, is the fact that those trees are right there on the eroded channel, and there's not much any way around that.
But it sounds like whether you do something with it or whether nature does something with it, those trees aren't probably going to last either way.
Long term, I don't think they will last.
So you explained, I think earlier, the reason for rerouting it, rather than refurbishing the existing channel, rather than repairing that, you have to remove it for the site plan for the house.
Right. As it goes down, I mean, it's pretty much perpendicular off the curb as it comes off the curb.
Yep.
And then it goes to the left. And so it really comes within a few feet of where the corner of the back right corner of the house will be. And if I don't shift it to the right, 10 or 12 feet, it will just eat into the house.
Sure.
But at the point where it enters the stream buffer, I may shift it 10 feet to the right, but it's still probably 15 feet from your property. So again, as it comes off the street, it'll be in the same place. It'll just be raised, and then as it goes down, instead of going more to the left, it'll gently go to the left, but be further off your property than it is at the curb.
Not I think no, because you can discuss afterward, but we just have to stick to the fact that we are in board discussion right now. Okay, board.
I would like to, unfortunately, there's not, unfortunately, public comment has passed, and so I'm sorry about that.
Can I say that I will be glad to work with them, meet with them, show up, on site, it'll be easier to look at and understand.
Yes, of course.
Be
And
able to do that.
and I just want to share, I think what you just described is what I was looking to hear. It's very well thought out. And I agree with you that by doing the geotech fabric and then putting those large rocks in, that will definitely slow the flow of the water, which will be a benefit over what was there before. And I am also happy to meet with you all and show you pictures of my property and what we did, which has a similar piece. So, and then I can help maybe alleviate some of those worries.
So guys, compared to what we've done before, this is like welcoming. I mean, we got two things. One of them is actually to improve for stormwater management and well articulated, by the way. And so I I don't see how we're gonna kind of say no to this one because it's kind of like, okay, guys, I want to get it done and I'm gonna help you out. I don't have any opposition except for, hey, listen, is my property going to be affected by this? But there's nothing here that shows that it's gonna be a negative. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of worried that if he doesn't start this thing early enough, that there might be more problems. But that's where my head is.
I'm with you.
And there's certainly a hard,
Yeah. Go.
there's certainly a hardship with the steep fall or the decline from the street. So I think it makes more sense to allow it to be closer to the street and just to get correct, more buildable, less reliance on more fill, et cetera.
So there's 12 of them. I could start with 2614 again if you guys want. Or if somebody else wants to do it, have at it.
It's all you, bud.
All right, here we go. ZBA 2614, I move to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, allow a wing wall to encroach into the side setback, and allow encroachment into the 75-foot stream buffer for stormwater management improvements. And well, no, I move. Sorry, guys.
Subject to the following conditions.
Exactly. So subject to did I do this right? Did I say?
Yeah, it's fine.
Should I start again?
Nope.
Okay, good. Conditions are construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by Keystone Lens Surveying Inc. and dated 5/5/26. That's Appendix A, right? And then if construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
All right, thank you. I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I've got a second. All those in favor? Artie?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still looking.
Unanimously approved. Thank you. So now we will move on to ZBA 26-15. We've already had staff present the case, so now I'm going to open up for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of ZBA 26-15? No? Anyone who would like to speak against the variance request? Multiple requests? No? Okay, then I'm going to close public comment for ZBA 26-15 and open it up to board comment.
Just want to say one quick thing to the concerned neighbors, and your concerns are valid, but listening to Jim, he seems like he's on your side. He's going to work with you and he's answering all your questions. So I know you earlier you were saying you were trying to come back up and trying to ask more questions. He seems like the kind of guy to work with that's going to get a lot of your questions answered. So I think you're in good hands there.
I'm going to make a motion to approve. I move to approve the request for 2 special exceptions from Chapter 27, Section 147. 1, to allow a new home to encroach into the contextual street setback range, and 1 to allow front door threshold elevation above contextual requirements, and 1 variance from Chapter 27, Section 270 to allow a wing wall to encroach into the side setback, subject to the following conditions. One, construction must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan prepared by Keystone Land Surveying, Inc. and dated 5/5/2026, reference Appendix A. Two, if construction is not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
Okay, thank you. I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I've got a second. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that approved unanimously as well. So thank you. Congratulations, and well said. That looks like Mr. Milam is going to be working with you and answering all your questions, and appears to really want to do the right things here. So we appreciate that as well, especially from a stormwater management perspective. Okay. Is there any other business tonight? We've had quite a bit. Any additional public comment? No? Any additional board comment?
I think all of these cases highlight the need for the city to take a fresh look at stormwater management. Please.
Other kind of.
And as always, kudos to our staff for presenting in extensive detail the cases with all the information that we needed. Thank you. Okay, in that case, we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.